by Councilmember Moreno. A resolution calling for the creation of an American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, Implementation Advisory Committee to the New Orleans City Council to develop a strategy and recommendations for implementation of the following allocations of the ARPA money: infrastructure RFP and sustainability recommendations for the language access program for city government. The infrastructure implementation and sustainability recommendations regarding the labor audit of the city contract, compliance with local labor standards, including the living wage and local worker participation. And we have two amendments. The first amendment is by council members Thomas, Green, and King. Let's see. Number one, on page 2, and the first, be it further resolved by the Council of the City of New Orleans paragraph, which lists representatives of the advisory council, add the following: a representative from the New Orleans branch of the NAACP, a representative from the L9 Economic Development Music District, a representative from the New Orleans African American Museum, a representative from the Southern University at New Orleans Honorary Center. Number 2, on page 3 in the last be it further resolved paragraph, which lists parties to receive certified copies of this resolution, delete and before J. Isaac and before the period add the following: Ronald Coleman of the New Orleans branch of the NAACP, Kia M. Hamilton of the New Orleans African American Museum, Keisha Henry of the L9 Economic Development District, and Dr. James Amos Jr. of Southern University of New Orleans. The amendment is to add additional members to the advisory council. That is the first amendment.
The first amendment is straightforward. The intended purpose of the advisory committee is to give recommendations for distribution of ARPA funds so that those communities have greater impact that will suffer from greater impacts, such as Black, Brown, and lower income communities will receive the benefits, and the listed groups will make the advisory committee even more representative of the communities that they're intended to serve. So I move for approval of amendment number 1. Seconded by Councilmember King. Members, please vote your machines on amendment 1. 6 yeas, no nays, and amendment 1 passes.
We now have amendment 2 by council members Moreno, Morel, Jeruso, Harris, King, and Green. Number 1, on page 1 in the preamble, delete the second bullet in its entirety and insert the following in lieu thereof: the infrastructure implementation and sustainability recommendations regarding the labor audit of city contracts, compliance with labor standards, including the living wage, disadvantaged business enterprise requirements, and programmatic offerings, and local worker participation ordinances. Number 2, on page 3 in the be it resolved paragraph, after the word prioritize, insert the following: DBE compliance. Number 3, on page 2 in the first be it further resolved paragraph, which lists representatives of the advisory council, add the following: a representative from the collaborative. Number 4, on page 3 in the last be it further resolved paragraph, after Louisiana Language Access Coalition, delete and number 5. On page 3 in the last be it further resolved paragraph, after J. Isaac with the Louisiana Association for the Deaf, insert the following: Geneva Coleman from the collaborative. That is the amendment.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. First, let me begin by explaining what this resolution is really about. You all made a few weeks ago that created a task force to more generally make recommendations on how to spend ARPA money. Since that point, the folks who wanted this task force have really kind of honed us into 2 main specific areas of money allocations, ARPA allocations that have already been made. So all they're doing is providing recommendations on the implementation of 2 things. 1, the creation of a language access program for the city of New Orleans, city government in New Orleans. And number two is recommendations for an audit of city contracts compliance with local labor standards, DBE requirements, and also additional local ordinances like living wage and local hire participation as well. So that is the limited scope of this particular task force. So I just wanted to make it extra clear that this wasn't about, you know, all types of recommendations for all type of ARPA dollars and how to spend money in the future. This is about specific allocations that have already been made. Number two, the amendment that I have is, even though we were already talking about different labor ordinances and local work ordinances in the city, I wanted to make it expressly clear that we were also talking about DBE requirements as well when it came to the audit contract. So this amendment makes that expressly clear. And it also adds one more group that's done a lot of work in this particular area, the collaborative, to the task force as well. So that is what this amendment does. I'll make a motion to approve. Seconded by Councilmember Green. 6 yeas, no nays. I do believe I have public comment. I don't have any cards, but I know Max has been wanting to speak. Come on, Max, fill out a card later because I don't have any cards. Can you check this?
Yeah, I put one in, but I'm happy to fill one out again.
Thank you, Max. Appreciate it.
Maxwell Chardulo, Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center, and I'm also been empowered to speak on behalf of the Big Easy Budget Coalition. So thank you, Councilman Moreno, and all the rest of the council members. I just thank you for explaining sort of how we narrowed the scope on this. I think that's really important. And thank you also, just to start with, for actually appropriating the money, which we did back in May. This is really important that we're going to finally spend some money to make sure that the democratic process in our city government is accessible to people with limited English proficiency, and also that our contractors are complying with our labor laws and DB requirements. They're programs we've never run before. So the goal of the committee is to gather the experts together on this issue and actually create recommendations for how they should be implemented. And you know, we limited it to just that because we know that's a big enough job in itself. And requesting free labor from all these groups to help solve it is a big ask. So we appreciate them. And we've deferred this a few times to make sure that we get this right. Both to make sure we talk to all of your offices and to all the different groups that we're working with. So we're grateful for you bearing with us on that. And it's really, we're excited to start. We're excited to start ASAP because we want to make sure this money is actually working and doing what we said it's going to do. So we support all of the amendments. I also just want to say that we're also eager for this to move forward because, as you know, the real work of the Big Easy Budget Coalition is to secure millions more in some of the surplus funding that we have left over for housing, violence prevention, and other community needs. And so you won't actually be hearing from me anymore on this because this is my last day with Fair Housing. And so I've really enjoyed working with all of you and your staffs. So thank you. But if you happen to have any inclination to thank or appreciate my work, I would happily accept that in the form of budget ordinances that appropriate fund balance money to the Big Easy Budget Coalition priorities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Max, and thank you for all your great work that you did for fair housing and not only just here, but also in the state legislature as well. Because I honestly, sometimes I wonder how you were making it up and down the interstate so much because you would end up here and you would end up there. Sometimes it seemed like almost on the same day. So we very much appreciate all of your hard work and your advocacy. And you are someone that doesn't just talk the talk, you actually walk the walk. So we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Any comments? Councilmember Green.
I have a feeling he'll be coming back, but I just wanted to say thank you and appreciate your motivation and the fact that you are committed to making a difference in our city. I feel that you'll be coming back, but I was caught off guard by this being your last day. So kind of congratulations. And where will you be going?
Well, I can tell you, you won't be fully rid of me. I'm not actually leaving the city. I'm just going to be working remotely for a national organization that works on housing segregation issues.
All right.
Called the Redress Movement.
Well, that shows that your continued motivation, you're working with an organization involved in housing, but congratulations on the work that you did thus far and looking forward to continuing working with you.
Thank you so much, Councilman.
Okay.
Any comments, Anita? Nope. Okay, I'll make a motion to adopt as amended. Seconded by Councilmember Green. Just waiting on the machine. All in favor? Aye. Madam Clerk, 6 yeas, no nays.
We're now on top of page 46 in the middle. We have motion M 23-432 by Councilmember Morrell. A motion suspending Rule 1 of the rules and regulations of the city council and establishing a regular council meeting schedule for 2024, and there is an amendment.
Yes, this is,
Wait,
the-
wait, wait, I
this
gotta-
is that time of year when we set the schedule for next year. I believe there's a mild amendment to the schedule based upon some input from council members. So I will take up that amendment at this time, Madam Clerk.
The amendment is by Councilmember Moreno. Number 1, on page 1, in the be it moved paragraph, delete January 11th and insert in lieu thereof January the 4th. Number 2, on page 1, in the be it moved paragraph, delete January 25th and insert in lieu
Thank you.
thereof January 18th. Number 3, on page 1, in the be it moved paragraph, delete February 8th and insert in lieu thereof February 1st. Number 4, on page 2, in the continue be it moved paragraph,
Really want.
delete June 27 and insert in lieu thereof
No, you're.
June 20th. That is the amendment.
I was joking. January 4th.
Councilmember, that was the amendment.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Yeah, so bottom line, my staff was looking over this and they found that there were some potential issues with the early on council meetings because of Mardi Gras scheduling. And we always want to make sure that particularly around the time of Mardi Gras, that people can get in and out of coming to our council meetings, and they're not going to be by any means swayed away because they think they're going to be stuck in Mardi Gras traffic or anything like that. So this just kind of adjusts a few things in the beginning of the year, and that's what this does. I'll make a motion to adopt the amendment. Okay, they're stuck again. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
6 yeas, no nays. I'll make a motion now to adopt as amended, Council President.
Sure. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
6 yeas, no nays.
All righty.
At the bottom of the page, you have motion M 23-433 by Councilmember Morrell. A motion adopting the holiday schedule for city government for the year 2024. Is there an amendment to that? Okay,
Once again, it's that time of year where we adopt all of the schedules for city government. I don't believe there's any amendments to this one, so I will move on it. Can I get a second? Second by Council Vice President Moreno. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, hearing none, 6 yeas, no nays to motion number M 23-433.
on top of page 47, motion M 23-436 has been deferred to October 5th and referred to the Governmental Affairs Committee. Motion M 23-437 by Councilmember Jeruso by request, adding the president of the council as a signatory to the contract between the city of New Orleans and the Federal Communication Commission, and authorizing the president of the council to sign the contract between the city of New Orleans and the Federal Communication Commission, Exhibit A.
Madam Clerk, do we need to do anything with Rule 57 here?
Adam. We need to suspend Rule 57.
So,
Because it has not gone to the Governmental Affairs Committee.
okay, I'll move to suspend,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Morrell. All in favor?
Aye.
6 yeas on motion M 23-437. I move, seconded by Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
6 yeas on that too.
All righty.
Thank you.
At the bottom of the page, we have resolution R 23-439 by council members Moreno, Morrell, Jeruso, Harris, King, Green, and Thomas. Approving the following grants for the funding by city council motion by city council and Cox Communication Louisiana Community Grant Program, subject to the organization's continued eligibility pursuant to the rule guidelines.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. These are our Cox grants. I'll make a motion to adopt.
Wait,
There's
you have
one amendment.
Oh, there's an amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
amendment is by Councilmember Green. On
No.
page 5, after the 20th unnumbered line, delete the next 2 unnumbered lines and insert the following in lieu thereof. Sigma Lambda Scholarship Foundation, $2,500, which would make the total $20,000.
And for the members of the council and the public, we were simply awaiting additional 501c3 information on the organization, so it wasn't incorporated into the original resolution. That is the need for the amendment. So I move for approval of that amendment. Seconded by Councilmember Moreno. Please, members, vote your machines. And the amendment to resolution 23-439 has been approved 6-0. Even though the machine doesn't reflect that. Oh, it's not working?
Councilman Moreno.
Okay, good.
Now we need to adopt it as amended.
I'll make a motion to adopt as amended,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Morel. All in favor? Aye. All right, my thing's not working and, aye, 6 yeas, no nays. Mine's all frozen up.
But now on top of page 51, we have motion M 23-442 has been withdrawn. Motion M 23-443 has been withdrawn. Council members, we need to suspend the rules to go to ordinance. on first
I'm
reading.
there.
All right.
All righty. All in favor?
Wait, who moved this second?
We have
Who
five.
moved?
I move Green.
Okay, everybody.
For the record, you know, Iowa, so they.
Ordinance is on first reading. Ordinance calendar number 34,394 by Councilmember Harris by request. An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of New Orleans to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of New Orleans, the city, and the National World War II Museum Incorporated for a term greater than 1 year for the public purpose of improving pedestrian walkways along Andrew Higgins Drive, including enhancements within part of the museum operations corridor for the benefit of and enjoyment by New Orleans citizens and visitors, and to encourage convention center participants to explore the historic warehouse district and the museum operations corridor in the city of New Orleans is more fully detailed in the cooperative endeavor agreement form attached hereto as Exhibit A, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Sorry. Ordinance calendar number 34,395 by Councilmember King. An ordinance to establish a conditional use to permit a bed and breakfast principal in an HMR2 historic Marigny Treme Bywater Residential District located on Square 157, Lot D, R1 and E in the 3rd Municipal District, bounded by Esplanade Avenue, Bourbon Street, Delphine Street, and Parker Street. The municipal addresses are 807 Esplanade Avenue and 1404 through 1414 Bourbon Street, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto zoning docket number 5123. Ordinance calendar number 34,396 by Councilmember King. An ordinance to establish a conditional use to permit a principal bed and breakfast in an HMR1 historic Marigny Treme Bywater Residential District located on squares 174 through 175, lots A and B in the 2nd Municipal District, bounded by North Robertson Street, Esplanade Avenue, Governor Nichols Street, and North Billary Street. The municipal addresses are 1238 through 1240 North Robertson Street, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto zoning docket number 5323. Ordinance calendar number 34,397 by Councilmember Harris. An ordinance to establish a conditional use to permit the retail sale of packaged alcoholic beverages in an MU1 medium intensity mixed use district on square 577 lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5A, 7A, 8B, 9, 10, 11, 14, 15, 16, 17, portions of 18, D, E, F, G, 36, 26, 27, 28, and part 25 in the first municipal district bounded by Tulane Avenue, South Durgan Wall Street, South Russia Blade Street, and Bank Street. The municipal addresses are 2501 through 2537 Tulane Avenue and 2500 through 2520 Bank Streets, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto, zoning docket number 5423. Ordinance calendar number 34,398 by Councilmember King. An ordinance to establish a conditional use to permit a bar in a C2 auto-oriented commercial district and an SC suburban corridor use restriction overlay district located on square B3, lot 2, Garden Oaks in the 5th Municipal District, bounded by General de Gaulle Drive, Bender Boulevard, Seam Street, and Texas Drive. The municipal address is 3733 General de Gaulle Drive, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto, zoning docket number 5823. Ordinance calendar number 34,399 by Councilmember Jeruso. An ordinance to establish a conditional use to permit an expansion of the floor area of an established multifamily dwelling in an HURD2 historic urban two-family residential district on square 46 lot A in the 7th Municipal District, bounded by Adams Street, Benjamin Street, Dominican Street, and Hillary Street. The municipal address is 3101 Adams Street, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto, zoning docket number 5923. Ordinance calendar number 34,400 by Councilmember Green. An ordinance to effect a zoning change from an HURD2 historic urban two-family residential district to an HUB1A historic urban neighborhood business district on square 538, lot A1 or 1A in the 3rd Municipal District, bounded by Poland Avenue, Urquhart Street, Kentucky Street, and North Villery Street. The municipal addresses are 1301 through 1303 Poland Avenue, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Zoning docket number 6023. Ordinance calendar number 34,401 by Councilmember Harris. An ordinance to establish a conditional use to permit a large child care center in an HURD2 historic urban two-family residential district on square 115 lots 4 or 17 and 14 or 16 in the 1st Municipal District, bounded by Terpsichore Street, Annunciation Street, Constant Street, and Melpomene Street. The municipal address is 917 Terpsichore Street, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto, zoning docket number 6123. Ordinance calendar number 34,402 by Councilmember Harris. An ordinance to amend section 58-36 of the Code of the City of New Orleans to merge certain precincts with less than 300 registered voters with adjacent precincts in accordance to LAREV statute 18.352. To correctly reflect the boundary of St. Louis Street Canal where applicable and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,403 by Councilmember Harris. An ordinance to authorize the placement of honorary street dedication signage for Henry Professor Longhair Roland Bird along the 1600, 1700, and 1800 blocks of Terpsichore Street from St. Charles Avenue to Aretha Castle Haley Boulevard and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,404 by Council Members Jeruso, Harris, Green, King, Moreno, and Thomas. An ordinance to amend and reordain section 2.7 of the Code of the City of New Orleans relative to professional services competitive selection threshold to include non-professional services, to require the publication of cost and type of professional and non-professional services procured by department and otherwise provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,405 by Councilmember Harris. An ordinance to amend and reordain section 30-771 of the Code of the City of New Orleans to provide relative to the definition of hotels and motels and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,406 by Councilmember Harris by request. An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of New Orleans to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of New Orleans, the city, and Total Community Action Incorporated, the contractor, for a term greater than 1 year for the public purpose of reducing food insecurity and improving the overall health of households in targeted low-income city neighborhoods, as more fully set forth in the cooperative endeavor agreement attached hereto and made a part hereof, titled Exhibit 1, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,407 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Green, and Thomas by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,265 MCS as amended, entitled an ordinance providing an operating budget of revenues for the city of New Orleans for the year 2023 to appropriate grant funds awarded by FEMA to the Office of the Mayor for emergency costs during the aftermath of Katrina and otherwise provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,308 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Green, and Thomas by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,266 MCS as amended, entitled an ordinance providing an operating budget of expenditures for the city of New Orleans for the year 2023 to appropriate grant funds awarded by FEMA to the Office of the Mayor for emergency costs during the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,409 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Green, and Thomas by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,265 MCS as amended, entitled an ordinance providing an operating budget of revenues for the city of New Orleans for the year 2023 to move funds from Fund 4405 appropriations to 100-200 to Fund 4145 appropriations -100/200 within the Department of Health and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,410 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Green, and Thomas by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,266 MCS as amended, entitled an ordinance providing an operating budget of expenditures for the city of New Orleans for the year 2023 to move funds from Fund 4405 appropriations 100/200 to Fund 4145 appropriations 100/200 within the Department of Health and otherwise provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,411 by Councilmember Morrell. An ordinance to amend and reordain section 70-10 of the Code of the City of New Orleans to include contracts for the legal services among the agreements requiring execution by the council president and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,412 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Green, and Thomas by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,265 MCS as amended, entitled an ordinance providing an operating budget of revenues for the city of New Orleans for the year 2023 to appropriate funds to the City Planning Commission for the short-term rental study and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,413 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Green, and Thomas by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,266 MCS as amended, entitled an ordinance providing an operating budget of expenditures for the city of New Orleans for the year 2022 to appropriate funds to the City Planning Commission for the short-term rental study and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,414 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Green, and Thomas by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,265 MCS as amended, entitled an ordinance providing an operating budget of revenues for the city of New Orleans for the year 2023 to appropriate funds to North Sea Trust Fund 5410 Personal Service 100 for Keller Center staffing positions and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,415 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Green, and Thomas by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,266 MCS as amended, entitled an ordinance providing an operating budget of expenditures for the city of New Orleans for year 2023 to appropriate funds for North Sea Fund 5410, personal services 100 for Keller Center staffing positions, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,416 by council members Jeruso and Thomas by request. An ordinance to authorize the mayor of the city of New Orleans to enter into a second amendment to the cooperative endeavor agreement amendment to amend the cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of New Orleans, the city, National Parent Leadership Institute Incorporated, the contractor, and the NOLA Business Alliance, the fiscal agent, relative to the contractor providing 20 additional weeks of 3-hour sessions once a week to parents in order to help parents become better leaders for their children and families, to extend the term of the agreement for an additional 1 year, and to modify or reaffirm certain terms and conditions as more fully set forth in the amendment attached hereto as Exhibit 1, and incorporated and made a part hereof, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,417 by Councilmember King by request. An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of New Orleans to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of New Orleans, the city, and the New Orleans Humane Law and Rescue LLC contractor for a term greater than 1 year for the public purpose of ensuring that the city has animal control services, particularly during an emergency, as more fully set forth in the cooperative endeavor agreement attached hereto and made a part hereof, entitled Exhibit 1, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,418 by Councilmember Green. An ordinance to temporarily waive certain fees, permit fees, and requirements within and around Milne Reed Center North Gym located at 5420 Franklin Avenue, New Orleans, Louisiana, 70122, in conjunction with Families Helping Families of Greater New Orleans on September 29, 2023 at 7 p.m. through 12 a.m. to specify the duration and boundaries of said waiver and to provide otherwise with respect thereto. This concludes the ordinances on first reading.
All in favor, 6 hours,